This is the story of the plane that changed the meaning of war. But to understand its triumph, we must first understand the terror it was created to fight. The year is 1943. The U.S. 8th Air Force was attempting to smash Hitler's industry with daylight precision bombing. But deep inside Germany, the German Luftwaffe waited. Allied fighters, the P-47 Thunderbolt and the P-38 Lightning, were magnificent machines, but they had one critical, fatal flaw: range. At a point deep into the Reich, the escorts would call bingo. Fuel was critical, and they would be forced to turn back. This moment defined the war. The unprotected B-17s and B-24s would suddenly be swarmed by a merciless German air defense. Losses were horrific. On some missions, up to one-third of the bomber formation was annihilated. Crews called the sky beyond the escort's range the death zone. The blood of these boys was soaking the German soil, and the entire daylight bombing strategy was on the verge of collapse. The war could not be won from the ground if the skies could not be controlled. The need was desperate. The American dream of air superiority hung by a thread. The solution didn't come from American ingenuity alone. It came from an international, almost accidental collaboration. In 1940, the British had approached North American aviation for a simple favor: build P-40 fighters under license. North American, with a bold challenge, promised to build a better plane, faster. In just 117 days, they rolled out the NA-73X, the beautiful, sleek P-51 Mustang. It was a marvel of aerodynamics, utilizing a revolutionary laminar flow wing that dramatically reduced drag. But it had a problem. It was powered by the American Allison V-1710 engine, which suffered a disastrous performance drop at high altitude. The plane was a failure for high-altitude combat. Then came the turning point. A British test pilot, Ronald Harker of Rolls-Royce, saw the Mustang's potential. He famously remarked, "If we put a Merlin in that thing, we'll have a fighter that will go everywhere." The British experimental test pilots made the swap. The British Rolls-Royce Merlin Engine, a two-stage, two-speed, liquid-cooled powerhouse, was bolted into the P-51 airframe. The result was pure magic. The P-51B and C models instantly jumped 70 miles per hour faster at 30,000 feet. Crucially, with massive new external drop tanks, it had the range to fly from England to Berlin and back. The perfect wing found its perfect engine. The Mustang was no longer a failed experiment. It was the savior. The effect of the Merlin-powered Mustang was immediate and profound. For the first time, American bomber crews had their little friends stay with them. They were protected on the entire 7-hour journey. German pilots were suddenly shocked to find their targets protected over the entire Reich. The P-51 pilots, flying the later iconic P-51D with its bubble canopy and 6 powerful, 50-caliber machine guns, were given a new aggressive directive: don't just escort, destroy the Luftwaffe. The strategy worked. The P-51s hunted the German fighters relentlessly. They used their speed to make a single, devastating pass, and their superior range to pursue the enemy all the way back to their home airfields, catching them on the ground. This became known as rat catching. The air war broke. P-51s claimed to have destroyed nearly 5,000 enemy aircraft in the air. The vast superiority of the Mustang systematically eliminated the experienced German fighter pilots. By the spring of 1944, the Luftwaffe was no longer a major threat over Western Europe. Air superiority was achieved, a prerequisite for the success of D-Day and the invasion of the continent. The story of the Mustang, however, cannot be told without the most inspiring chapter of all: the Tuskegee Airmen. These men were the first African-American military pilots in U.S. history. They trained at the segregated Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, fighting racism and humiliating prejudice from their own countrymen every day. Military tradition and leaders actively questioned their intelligence, their competence, and their courage, but the Tuskegee Airmen were determined to prove them all wrong. When they were finally given the P-51, they painted their tails a distinct, defiant red, earning them the famous moniker, the Red Tails. Their record was simply unparalleled. Their discipline and dedication to the bomber crews they escorted became legendary. Bomber crews would specifically radio for the Red Tails, knowing they were the best protection available. The Red Tails fought against two enemies: fascism abroad, and prejudice at home. Their success was a powerful, undeniable argument for integration. Their exceptional service in the P-51 Mustang helped secure the victory abroad, and more importantly, paved the way for President Truman to desegregate the entire U.S. military in 1948. The P-51 was their silver instrument of justice. As the war reached its final, desperate stages, Germany introduced its last technological card, the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet fighter. With speeds over 100 miles per hour faster than the P-51, the Me-262 was supposed to sweep the American bombers from the sky. The Mustang pilots were suddenly faced with an enemy that could not be matched in level flight. But the Mustang pilots, confident in their numbers and aggression, adapted quickly. The jet was fast, but it was fragile, especially during its slow takeoff and landing phases. P-51 units were tasked with rat-catching at a new level. They loitered over the German airfields, diving down at top speed to destroy the vulnerable jets just as they were lifting off or touching down. The piston-engine P-51, the king of the sky, was forced to become the jet hunter. The P-51 even achieved a few rare victories in the air. One of the most famous aces of the war, Chuck Yeager, famously destroyed an Me-262 in the air, using the Mustang's superior maneuverability to outwit the faster but less agile jet. Ultimately, the P-51's dominance ensured the jets never had the time or security to become a war-winning force. The P-51 Mustang. It was a failure that became a necessity. It was a foreign-powered machine that saved American lives. And it was an instrument of war that became a catalyst for civil rights. The Mustang was one of the most effective air superiority fighters ever built, achieving its place in history, not just because of its speed and range, but because it carried the hopes of millions of bomber crews and the aspirations of a new generation of American heroes. It is a monument to what can be achieved when ingenuity, collaboration, and a refusal to fail come together in the pursuit of a just cause. Its legacy lives on, the iconic shape and the unmistakable roar of that Merlin engine, the sound of freedom flying at 30,000 feet. Join us next time on Aviation Tales as we continue to honor the machines and heroes of the greatest generation. Subscribe now